Hello everybody. We are going to be going to start our first day of notes for Math 8, and I'm really excited about this. So, day 1, Unit 4, we actually are starting over Unit 4, just to make sure you guys get a full understanding of it. So, Unit 4 is ratios and proportions. Today, it's ratios, proportions, and percents. Today we are focusing on the intro for ratios and proportions. So I apologize if this first video is a little long. Future videos won't be as long, okay? So just a disclaimer, if I'm going too fast or you're not understanding something, if I'm going too fast, you can easily just pause the video, or if you miss something, you can rewind it. That's what's great about these videos. Also, if you don't understand something when we're going over it, make sure you make a note of it on your notes. That way, when we come back to class, when I ask if there's any questions on the notes, you can ask your question then and make sure you understand it before we start our practice. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with this vocab of ratios. I'm actually going to make this a big screen. So a ratio is actually a comparison of two numbers. You guys have seen ratios a lot before. We mostly use ratios as a fraction in this class. So you're going to see a lot of fraction ratios. However, it's important to know the other ways of writing a ratio as well. So there are 3 distinct ways, and we can do it with numbers, or we can do it algebraically, meaning we can do it with letters. So numerically, we could say it's just 1 to 2. There's 1 girl to every 2 boys in the class. There's 1, I don't even know, that's the only example I can think of. So we can actually use the word 2. Or we can use the colon, and that also means 1 to 2, it's a ratio. And finally is our fraction. So just 1 over 2. You always want to write whatever's written first in the numerator on the top, okay? And then algebraically is the exact same thing, except we use letters. So I can say A to B, A colon B, which still means a ratio, and A over B, okay? So example 1, we're going to go ahead and express these ratios as a fraction in simplest form, okay? So we have 36 DVDs out of 84 DVDs. Out of means compared to the total, okay? So it still means 2. So 36 DVDs to the 84 DVDs that we have total, okay? So we go ahead and write it as a ratio just like that. 36 over 84. We write 36 on top because it came first, 84 came second, so it's on the bottom. Now, the thing is, it said in simplest form. This is not in simplest form, so we must simplify it. To simplify a fraction, you just need to come up with a number that you can divide both of them by. You could start with 2 if you want. They're both divisible by 4. They're both divisible by 6. The biggest number that they're both divisible by is actually 12. So if you didn't think of 12 and you just did it by 2, that's fine. You'd probably have to simplify a couple of times. Where 12, if we divide them both by 12, we end up getting 3 over 7, and I can't simplify it anymore. So I know that's my final answer, is 3 over 7. That's my ratio. Okay? B, we have 3 pints to 4 quarts. So because we're comparing these, they actually need to be the same kind of thing. Okay, same measurement. When we say girls to boys, we're still talking about like kids. When we say blue shirts to red shirts, we're still talking about shirts. Pints and quarts aren't the same measurement, so we actually need to convert it. Now, luckily, I looked it up for you, so I made sure this one was not a try on your own. 2 pints actually equals 1 quart. So if we have 4 quarts, that means we have 4 times 2, so we have 8 pints. So it's really 3 pints to 8 pints. Okay, now we can make that comparison. So I go ahead and write it as a ratio, which is 3 over 8. I can't think of anything that goes into 3 and into 8. So that is my simplest form. Okay. You could have also done it with quarts as well. It would have given you a decimal to deal with, which is not the best thing. So that's why I didn't do it that way. So now you're going to try on your own. I've got boys to girls and 9 inches to 1 yard. I'm going to give you a hint for B. you're probably going to want to convert. Okay, so think about how many inches are in a yard, and I would convert the yards to inches so you have that and you can make that comparison. And remember that you're supposed to give these in simplest form. We'll go over the answers to these two at the beginning of class, so go ahead and just write down what you think it is, and we will make sure, like, I'll go over how to do these problems. Okay? So I just want you to try this on your own. I will be looking to make sure these are complete when I check your homework. Okay? Example 2 is a word problem. Again, if I'm going too fast, pause the video. Okay? Bonnie's Boutique had a t-shirt sale to make room for new inventory. At the end of the sale, 16 t-shirts were left. Of these, 6 were blue. Write a ratio of blue shirts to shirts left as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, well, we just said it's 6 blue shirts out of the 16 total shirts. I showed you in the first example that out of actually does mean 2. So it's 6 blue shirts to the 18 total shirts. I can write that as a fraction. So I can just go ahead and do, where'd it go? 6 over 16. However, that can easily be simplified. I can divide them both by 2. And that looks like that's all I can divide them by. So if I divide them both by 2, I get 3/8. And that's my simplest form of the ratio. Okay? Now, you get to try a word problem on your own. Very similar. Okay? So go ahead and try this one on your own, and we will go over it next class. Alright, now moving on to proportions. So we're going to go ahead and go back to vocabulary. Proportions are basically 2 ratios that are set equal to each other. Okay? And then cross products are a way to determine if ratios are actually equal to each other. What happens is we end up multiplying the numerator of one of the fractions with the denominator of the other for both. Like we do it across one way and we do it across the other way, and then set it equal. And as long as they're equal to each other, it works. So let me show you an example. Example 3, actually. We need to check to make sure these ratios are proportional. So if that's true, this actually should be equal. So what we do is we multiply the numerator of the first one with the denominator of the second, and then we also multiply the numerator of the second with the denominator of the first. I know it looks very confusing. So we write out what the multiplication is. We're doing 2 times the 8, and it's still supposed to be equal because we have that equal sign in the middle. It's supposed to be equal to the 4 times the 4. Okay, I just realized you guys might have already done this, and I'm sorry if I'm going very, very slow for you. But I just want to make sure you guys get it. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and multiply and see if they actually come out. So 2 times 8 gives me 16. 4 times 4 comes out to be 16. These actually are equal, so it makes a true statement. So because it came out true, these ratios are proportional to each other. Okay? So you're going to try this one on your own to see if these two are proportional. You do it the exact same way I did. And if you need to rewind the video so you can see how I did it again, go for it. Alright, now another way to use proportions, and what you're probably going to use this for more often than anything, and you will use it in algebra next year, is to find the value of a variable that would make it true. So it's basically a way of solving for a variable. Okay? So we still have the same thing. We can do it in 3 steps. The very first thing is we write the cross product. So I'm going to draw my little circles because that helps me figure out what I'm multiplying. I'm doing 8 times 10 and 4 times the x. So I just go ahead and write it out. Now I go ahead and do the multiplication. 8 times 10, or 10 times 8, is 80. And 4 times x, I can't really do it, so I just say 4x. Okay, now I just go ahead and get x by itself, and this is just a one-step equation. So in order to get x by itself, I need to undo this times 4. The way I undo it is use the opposite operation. So instead of multiplying, I'll divide by 4. And I do it to both sides. So 80 divided by 4 gives me 20. 4 divided by 4 just gives me 1, so I'm just left with the x there. So I find out that x equals 20. Okay? So let's try another example. Ooh, I don't know why that's there. So start off with making my cross products. So I make my little circles. So I'm going to do x times 20 and 7 times 4. I multiply it together. 4 times 7 is 28. X times 20 is 20x. Then I go ahead and get x by itself. So I'm going to divide by this times 20. Divide both sides by 20. I end up getting x is equal to 28 over 20. Now 28 over 20 is not simplified. So I need to simplify it. Because I can divide them both by 4, or I can divide them both by 2. If I divide them both by 4, I end up getting 7 over 5. 7/5 is my simplified form of my answer. So that is actually what my x value is 7/5. So I could write x equals 7/5. Okay, so you guys are going to try this last one on your own. Remember to write down any questions you have, and we will go over it next class. Other than that, that was your first video, and it was only 11 minutes, so maybe this takes you 20 minutes total. That's a lot shorter than a lot of math homeworks. So, please let me know if you have any questions next class, and I will see you then. Okay? Bye!